I tweeted this when the episode summary came out for this episode, and I still think this was the case for this episode. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, episode 30 of the Journeys anime titled The Reluctant Pikachu and the Exasperated Mr. Mime just dropped, and in this episode, Pikachu is mad at Ash because he's doing nothing but focusing on Riolu, and Pikachu decides to go somewhere else with Mr. Mime following him. Where are they going? What's happening? Well, let's find out. The episode begins in progress with a World Championship battle against Tony from episode 18 of Journeys, the one where Ash faced off against the replacement gym leader for Lieutenant Surge. Anyways, after tanking a Shockwave and an Electro Ball, Riolu ends the battle with a Vacuum Wave, causing Ash's rank to increase to 901. Pikachu's pumped seeing this and wants to battle next, but Ash says that since Riolu's on a roll, he wants Riolu to keep going, which makes Pikachu a bit upset. We then cut to training where Ash is training as Riolu against his Farfetch'd, and after beating it, goes Farfetch'd. Meanwhile, Pikachu's on the bench upset because he wants to go, but Ash isn't calling on him. After beating Go's Farfetch'd, it looks like Pikachu might get a shot, but nope. Riolu still wants to go, so he takes on Go's Beedrill. This basically takes all day, and by the time they're all done, it's basically evening. When Ash does get back to Pikachu, it's sleeping, and during the conversation, the thing that pushes Pikachu's button, it seems, is Ash implying that because it was sleeping, it wasn't working hard while Riolu was, causing it to use Thunderbolt on Ash. I'll have more to say about this later, but for now, let's just continue through the story. Ash's mom is here. Her friend lives nearby, so she's here to see them. She even makes them dinner, which everyone enjoys, and then after dinner, Ash and Riolu go to train again, making Pikachu feel even more abandoned by Ash. While Ash's mom is heading to bed, Pikachu goes with her because it doesn't want to sleep with Ash. We get this wonderful lullaby sung by Masami Toishima, where she tells Pikachu how much she means to Ash and how Ash used to sleep with her like this when she was a kid too. This is me just overanalyzing, but I can't help but look at the scene as not just a reflection of what Pikachu feels at the moment, but also how Delia feels. If you think about it, her husband is not around, and her only son is out there in the world adventuring. As a mother, it has to get lonely, which is why she's so accepting of Pikachu sleeping with her, just like Ash used to do when he was a kid. But as the morning arrives and she leaves, leaving Pikachu in the bed, it shows that while she does have those feelings, she's also willing to accept that her kid is moving forward just like she is. Am I peering too deep into the small scene? Perhaps. Anyways, she leaves without Pikachu, and when Ash leaves to go train with Riolu again, telling Pikachu that he'll train with him later, he starts following the long-gone car. Mr. Mime tries to stop him, but gets a face full of Thunderbolt for his troubles. The second half of this episode was just fantastic. It's the type of stuff I love in Pokemon where there isn't much interaction with the heroes. Instead, it's just Pokemon being Pokemon. There's a fantastic sequence of Pikachu and Mr. Mime running down a hill, a hilarious gag where Pikachu tries to cross a daring bit of river which looks like he won't be able to, and Mr. Mime has to jump and save him, only for the water to be waist deep on Mr. Mime. Then there's a fantastic bit where they see a hitchhiker get a ride and Mr. Mime tries to do the same and fails over and over, only for Pikachu to do it in one shot. Then we get to the main turning point in this episode. While heading home, Pikachu has been hungry, and that was established a little bit back. Eventually, they come across a tree full of Lumberry. Before he can eat it though, it gets snatched out of his hands by a Spearow. Mr. Mime counters by using Psychic and stealing it right back, only for a group of Spearow to come at him for doing so. This begs the question, why didn't he just use Psychic to pick up Pikachu earlier in the river? But again, that was meant to be the joke, so I don't mind. And similar to episode 1 of the anime, Pikachu uses Thunderbolt to disperse the crowd of Spearow and sees Mr. Mime in a similar position to Ash, reminding him of Ash. This makes it rethink what it's doing, and eventually, once it does get home to Pallet Town, it decides to head back, only for Ash to be at his home. Ash apologizes to it for not understanding its feelings, and once they're all inside, they eat dinner, and the episode ends with Ash singing it the same lullaby that his mom did earlier, with Pikachu also singing it and both of them falling asleep. And this is a great episode, don't get me wrong, but there's one major problem with this episode. The entire premise, the entire reason for this episode, is a complete lie. The reason that Pikachu is upset at Ash in this episode is that Ash isn't giving him enough attention. Or, I guess it would be more fair to say that he's paying too much attention to Riolu. And you know what? Normally, you'd be able to sympathize with Pikachu. But in this case, because what we've seen as an audience and what we're told to believe in this episode are so out of odds that it feels like an impossible scenario. And because of this, Ash doesn't come off as the bad guy. Instead, Pikachu comes off as clingy and whiny because, from the audience perspective, we only see one single day pass before Pikachu gets all huffy. And even if we assume that maybe this has been happening for the last couple days, it doesn't justify Pikachu's behavior at all. In fact, let's look at the last 10 episodes of the series to see if Pikachu's argument holds up, okay? Episode 20, in a World Championship match, Ash uses Pikachu to face off against Meganium. Point goes to Ash. Episode 21, Pikachu is about to fight Onix, but gets pushed away by Riolu and Ash fights with him instead. And even though it's not implied anywhere in the episode, let's just assume that Pikachu was upset about this. So, here we go. Point goes to Pikachu. Episode 22. This was a Go and Score Bunny focused episode, so this was a wash. Episode 23. Ash uses Pikachu and Riolu to help out the evolving Cascoon. Again, point goes to Ash. Episode 24. Ash uses Pikachu and Riolu to face off against Team Rocket. Not only that, but when Pikachu gets captured, it's Ash who helps him escape and feeds him a Lumberry. Again, point to Ash. Episode 25. Ash uses Pikachu in his first World Championship battle before facing Korrina. Riolu doesn't participate in any of the World Championships at all. So, point goes to Ash. Episode 26. A fully gag episode, but even still, Ash brings Pikachu and not Riolu to both the Magikarp jump and the Slowpoke Island. But even still, since it's a gag episode, let's call it a wash. Episode 27. Ash uses Riolu to take on Farfetch'd instead of Pikachu, so point goes to Pikachu. Episode 28. He uses both Pikachu and Riolu to battle Team Rocket. Point goes to Ash. Episode 29. We literally start the episode with Pikachu and Riolu training. Point goes to Ash. And for episode 30, we'll give the point to Pikachu. So, if we tally all that up, in the past 10 episodes, Pikachu can feel justified 3 times at most before this outburst, which feels so out of left field that no matter how much the show tries to justify it by having Ash apologize to Pikachu, as a viewer, it's almost impossible to accept because that's not what happened. The only line that can justify this entire scenario here is that when Ash's mom says that Pikachu is like a baby, because looking at it any other way, it doesn't make sense. Like I said in my Twitter a while back, I feel like this episode was maybe supposed to air much later, but because of the break in production, some episodes probably had to be moved forward in order for the story to make sense in where they're heading. Now, if there were episodes where we constantly saw Ash ignoring Pikachu, then it would be believable. But in this case, I just can't believe that. But if we look past that glaring problem, the rest of the episode is pretty great in my opinion. The art and animation in this episode is fantastic. This is true not only for the battle portions, but also the non-battle portions. I especially love the sequence when Pikachu and Mr. Mime are running down the hill. It looks great. Mr. Mime shines like he always does anytime he's on camera. The gags are pretty funny and charming, and the flashback sequence is integrated well enough to this episode so as to not feel like padding. Ash's mom gets quite a bit to do here, which is rare but always enjoyable to watch. And even though this episode is about Pikachu, it gives us great insight into how strong Ash's Riolu is getting overall. Something I said that needed to be shown before, not just told to us, which I'm glad is being done here. And also, because this episode is mostly from Pikachu's perspective, there isn't a lot of talking, meaning that we're treated to some fantastic sound design by Hayashi all throughout the episode, which is pretty enjoyable to listen to. The only question is, did Go see Ash's Alola League trophy when he was in this room? Who knows? I guess we'll just have to wait and find out. So, overall, I like this episode. It's just an episode that I had a hard time getting invested in because the premise makes no sense, but if you overlook that tiny little fact, everything besides that is done masterfully. The episode works really well in a vacuum, and in the context of this episode, everything is done really well to make you invested in the story. So, if you haven't already, check it out. I think you'll enjoy this episode. The next episode seems like a character of the day episode, with Parker's friend and Chloe being the main focus of this episode, along with their Feebas. It looks like a decent episode, but nothing crazy to look forward to. Who knows, maybe this episode will surprise me like episode 29 did. But anyways, that's it for my review of episode 30 of the Journeys anime. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and in the comments, let me know, what did you think of this episode? You can follow me on Twitter at @PdGaming, and that's it. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.